Ryan, I'm with you. He hasn't really, I think, and he's not really. Obviously, he had the great run to start the game, but after that, he wasn't efficient in the passing game. Obviously, 8 out of 18. Um, he wasn't making great decisions in the run game as well. So yeah, I I think you probably have to play Rattler. Have him ready to come in at any point, but I think Rattler gives you the best chance to win next week. Not saying that Rattler's a better quarterback. I think right now maybe he does give you that best chance to win. Um, yep. Running game is improving. I think the O line is just kind of up and down. I would like to see. I think someone else mentioned it. I would like to see Swinson and Conjal in the game. I think both of those kids played pretty well today. And Oklahoma just has some. They're just not as talented on the offensive line as they have been. We've talked about that, and just scheme is very complicated for Oklahoma. It's something that really needs to be evaluated after the end of the season, and part of that is not getting some of the players that they've had in the past there. So I think that's continued to be a struggle for Oklahoma, but I think combination with the scheme and the recruiting has got Oklahoma to where they are with the offensive line. So they need to have their best game of the season next week without a doubt. Um, okay, I'm not saying he won't be elite. He's got to improve. He will. Yeah, and I think that's fine. He's probably playing before he's really ready. To be honest with you, I mean, we thought this was his team. Next year, a lot of us thought that Rattler would, based on the season that he was projected to have, thought that he would probably, have a good season and then go to the NFL after the season, and he still may do that. The latter part of it is, but would be a great story for him overall if he gets the job here this week and leads Oklahoma to a couple of victories over Oklahoma State. That would be good a good ending to a kind of a bad season for him, but would certainly propel him to the NFL. I think if that would happen without a doubt. Um, yep, I think there's a lot of consensus here that maybe Rattler gives Oklahoma the best opportunity to win that game. Cam, not a playoff team. Definitely agree. We get yeah, Michigan State's not making the playoffs. There's zero chance at this point. They have no chance to even make the conference championship game. They have two losses. There's no chance. I think a two-loss Oklahoma or Oklahoma State team would probably have a better chance over Michigan State at this point. So I think it's Michigan or Ohio State. Either one of those teams will be the teams that will make the playoffs from the Big Ten. I mean, there's a possibility. I mean, it's a slim possibility, but there's a possibility that the Big Ten could get shut out. Let's say, whoever wins, the game next week between Michigan and Ohio State. Obviously, they're in the Big Ten championship game, but one of those teams gets beat by Wisconsin or even Minnesota. Probably was going to be Wisconsin, but if either one of those teams loses, then they're probably obviously the loser between Ohio State and Michigan is out, and then if they were to lose again, they would get out. They would be out of the playoff mix. But don't really expect the way Ohio State's playing right now. I would be shocked if they lose to either Michigan or Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game. Let's see. Agreed. I'm kind of the same way. In a normal year, if I felt like Oklahoma could, now if Oklahoma ended up playing a Cincinnati in the playoffs, I think that's an opportunity that they would play favorably against. However, anyone else, Ohio State and Georgia, not a great matchup for them. Um, It really has, Weston. It's been I think this is me personally, and again, I'm not calling for anyone to get fired or anything like that. I think this has been the worst year for Riley. The offense isn't anywhere near as good. It looks very confused at times. Offensive line play has been bad. Quarterback play has been very inconsistent. Play calling has been very weird for me. He's not. This team doesn't really have an identity, so I think it's been a bad year for him. That I think just the play calling has been, and I don't know if it's one of those things where he's having trouble managing the game as a head coach, and then obviously being the offensive coordinator and being the quarterback coach. But there's a couple of things. If I was, a couple of things for me looking on the outside looking in. Obviously, I'm not inside the program. I think they need to on offense. I think they need to take a hard look at the schemes that they're running from an offensive line perspective. They need to find a way to make it more simple. Um, just a simple stretch play is something that Oklahoma never runs, and every single team in the country, and on Sundays has that play in their playbook, and it's just something that Oklahoma doesn't do. You've heard a lot if anyone listens to Gabe, or if you watch the Gabe Eicher and Teddy Lehman, or if you watch the broadcast today, they talked a lot about the gap scheme versus the zone run scheme, where Oklahoma has traditionally been a very gap oriented blocking scheme on the running plays, and they've not really been very successful at that this year. The zone run scheme has been much more. They haven't run it a lot. They were pretty successful with it against Kansas State, but they kind of went away from it since then. So I think those are a couple of things that I would look at specifically, if you can kind of tell how it's been. It hasn't been super helpful for Oklahoma just from a recruiting perspective as well. So I think that's one thing. Bringing an offensive coordinator in here, or a play caller, whatever you want to call them, if it's not someone that you feel comfortable with on staff, like a Cale Gundy or a Beanbo or whatever that might look like, bringing someone in. I've always been a big proponent. Steve Spurrier is the only person, the only. Now Ryan Day does a good job of it with Ohio State, but at the same time, you know, Spurrier's been the only one that's won a national championship being the offensive coordinator and the head coach. So it's something I'm not a very big proponent of, being a head coach, being a play caller at the same time. So I think this was, for me, it'd be something that I would look at. And then the other thing defensively, the speed D thing, I don't, it's kind of an experiment. I don't know that it's worked. I mean, they played well today, defensive line, but I think they've more times than not, the defensive line has got pushed around, and they're going to get pushed around once they play these teams that are really good up front. So, specifically if Oklahoma were to get in the playoffs, if they were to play a team like Georgia, a team like Alabama, a team like Ohio State, they would get pushed around a bit on the offensive line versus that defensive line.